Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. My name is Sarah, and today my co-host Carrie Bennett and I are going to be making these complex topics of quantum biology and circadian biology understandable to the everyday person. Thank you so much for tuning in. We ask that if you are listening on audio only, that you take a moment to leave us up to a 5-star review. And if you're on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment. It will help to get the show out to more people. And before we jump into today's topic, just a quick reminder to head down to the show notes and check out my free resources as well as Carrie's free resources. We also do have courses on a variety of topics. If you are hoping to dive deeper, Carrie and I both have practitioner courses available as well for anyone who wants to begin to bring these topics to their clients and help them to implement these strategies into their daily lives. So check those out. We also have a co-taught course called Quantum Fertility that is available that allows people and practitioners to work on their fertility using these principles of quantum biology and circadian biology. Again, thank you so much for listening or watching today's show, whichever one you are doing. And let's go ahead and jump into it now. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. Today, we want to talk about, just consumers and just if you're out there listening or watching, how to decipher information. Right, Carrie?
Yeah, this came about because, well, I'll let you say how it kind of came about in terms of your back end on social media, but we want everyone to be aware that when we're looking through social media, or research, right? Research articles, you will always find something that draws the conclusions that you want, right? And then you'll find the exact opposite as well. And so how can we decipher in this world where there's plenty of information out there that we could dive into? How do you really decipher what's legit and what you want to maybe think about following as good quality information versus what might have been bought and paid for and it's just trying to maybe what I would call is dilute the research basically is what can happen quite a bit.
Yeah. I was just talking with Carrie before we hit record. One day we'll record everything.
We should just have an auto record one that way.
I think people would probably like those conversations better than these, but like that was kind of like what it was like with Dr. Sarah here, because it was just like all hell is breaking loose and we're just talking about everything. But Carrie and I are both like, maybe one day. So just, subscribe, follow, maybe one of these days we'll hit record and just let all the conversation come out. But, something I was talking with Carrie about, we were talking about both of these things that we're going to bring up today on this episode is in 2021, when there was I have to be very careful about how I say this because I don't want the channel to get taken down, my stuff I don't want retaliation because this is how deep this stuff runs. There will be retaliation for people who speak out about this type of thing, but there was a very popular medical procedure that was being promoted back in 2021, and you can refresh your memory as you wish. And I had about 30,000 followers at the time. And an email came into my inbox that basically was an offer for me to promote this particular medical procedure and be paid to talk about it on Instagram. And that was like, I kind of always knew there were hidden agendas and people talking about certain topics, but that was like very in my face, like, oh, because this is something that I was choosing not to utilize for myself and my family for various reasons, and didn't like people's freedom being taken away at that time. And so that really just was like, gave me a really bad feeling, and then opened my eyes to how deep this goes. Because I literally only had 30,000 followers at the time. So yeah.
Yeah. And so I hate to burst people's bubbles, but things are being paid for all the time, either to be promoted on social media or in research itself. Yeah. And so it's one of those things where, how do you know that? How do we even open this conversation up towards how someone knows when they resonate with the information and they want to try to apply it versus what's bought and paid for, and something to be aware of, something that I'm always aware of now, especially now that I've been a presence on social media for a little while now, is this idea of whenever you see like repetitive attack comments or
Mhm.
just combative comments in general. Yes, some of those are people who are just looking to be combative.
Mhm.
But sometimes you have to realize that a lot of what happens on social media, let's say you're promoting the benefits of sun health, and then you'll get a bunch of posts regarding like skin cancer and skin cancer. You'll see that. And I know, Sarah, you just posted this to your stories today. I just found this online as well. And it's what a bot farm actually looks like. And it's literally a wall of monitors of social media accounts and just people who are paid, this is their job, to basically instigate and antagonize on social
Mhm.
media.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, I mean, so you realize, so when I hear this repetitive, like these repetitive comments or repetitive things, very similar thing was done. The repetitive comments came out. I noticed these at a very similar time as the exact time that you were talking about 2020, 2021
Mhm.
regarding various topics during that time. But we're very combative. Like, if you don't do this, you're hurting society.
This.
But you'll hear it the same thing. If you don't do this, if you're bad because blah blah blah. You'll hear a lot of those types of comments. And so it was
Mhm.
fascinating
Mhm.
to realize how these bot farms really work and how robust they are, not just in that particular topic, but for even the little things that we would post about regarding nutrition, right? Nutrition's
Mm.
another hot button one.
Oh, Lord. That's like the
Thankfully,
only reels of mine that Instagram pushes. It's so annoying because,
yeah,
like, I
hot
want to
button
talk
topic.
about light and hormones, and that sort of a reel gets a fraction. Like, just for instance, I posted a reel about protein. God bless. So it's just so like not even really interesting. On Thursday, I posted this, and we're sitting here Tuesday. Guess how many views that thing has from just a few days?
100,000.
1,000,000.
No way.
Yes. That's been making my life a living hell from people trolling me about this stupid post about protein. I'm like, just it's really not that big of a deal, people. I just made a piece of content because like that's what I do every day is make a piece of content. I'm like, I'll talk about this today. Oh no, Instagram was like, oh, we're gonna send it to 1,000,000 people in like just a few days. And so yeah, people are all riled up about that. But I do a similar kind of a reel that's talking about light and hormones, and I get maybe 20,000 since Friday, Thursday, like, so we get 1,000,000 versus 20,000. So Instagram has different topics that it will push out and that different topics that it will bring, push down. It's
Right. Well, it wants to promote inflammatory content because inflammatory or not even inflammatory, but just content where there's polarity, where there's
yeah,
people who have picked strong sides
yep,
for or against. They want to
right,
promote that because that keeps people on their platform longer,
exactly.
either proving themselves right, proving themselves right, argue, right?
Okay,
Um,
so you eat 200 grams of protein a day and you have a six pack. I don't care. Why are you commenting? I don't care. Like this
glad
is the
it
comments I get.
glad
Like,
it works for
I've never
you.
felt better or looked better. This post is nonsense. I'm like, okay, good for you. Like, I don't care. Like, move on with your life. Like, no one cares. But
I
okay.
know. I know. So when I read stuff, like let's say I stumble across something new on social media. Well, the first question I ask myself is, does this make sense through the lens of nature?
Right.
Anything, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's why when I hear everyone has to be a vegan all the time or everyone has to be carnivore all the time, I'm
This
like,
is the most optimal diet for everyone, no matter where they
right.
live on the planet. I'm like, absolutely not.
I know. It's like it's been such a great point of reference to be like, how
Yes.
does this make sense through understanding what has happened with the cycles of nature throughout the course of a year, from where someone lives based on their location, as their proximity to the equator or to the poles. All of that has provided a very strong groundwork for me to think, well, that's interesting. I've never thought about that before. Let me keep an open mind
Mhm.
versus that is so rigid. That's not even possible that could work for everyone all the time.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and that's because you're like a human being who doesn't spend all day wrecking their dopamine on their phone and feel the need to lash out at people if there's the slightest disagreement, right? Or
Oh
like,
yeah. Yeah, I just kind of, I almost feel bad. I secretly like bless those people who feel the need to come at,
Yeah.
it's like validate me, validate me, validate me. It's like, oh, I don't like if I disagree with something, I just move on. Like there's no point in me trying to
Right.
initiate any sort of
Right.
arguments or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and so once it kind of goes through like that test in terms of the lens of nature, then the next step I typically think of is, well, is there any research that backs this up?
Mhm. Mhm.
But then that's another challenge
There's
as
so
well.
much bias in the research,
Right.
so
Right.
much bias. Like you are the one who you were talking about this article that one of your group members sent you about sun exposure, of course, because it's summer right
Yes.
now. So all these, articles are coming out. And then this very prominent person who wrote the article has cited all these studies. And then you went and looked in the studies. And what did you find in the studies?
Well, the particular article by this very influential doctor was talking about how sunlight is any tan is damage. All sunlight is basically damaging. We have to protect ourselves at all time, and it causes this low level inflammaging is the word. That's I mean, and when you throw big words out there, it's easy to be like, oh, this is sciencey, right? Like this
Big,
is
big name doctor,
big
lots of
name doctor.
influence, lots of followers, big podcast, all the things. He says inflammaging. So I must develop a fear to inflammaging.
Exactly. And then when you
Made
actually
up word anyway.
when you actually go into the research that's there that's listed in this article and the different the way he's trying to claim that his references, you start to real well, number one, some of them are behind a paywall. Like
Mhm.
that's how for me that's always annoying when they're behind a paywall. I'm not going to spend $78, $54, $39
No,
for a 24-hour access to this one particular article.
no.
So for me, that's always like, And the ones that aren't behind the paywall, when you look at it, you're like, oh, this is an overview of how ultraviolet radiation can cause DNA damage and inflammation. Absolutely, it can. But
Mhm.
when you see the studies that this review article is citing, that's where you have to go into the article, the citations of this review article, and be like, oh, they're
Mm.
using narrowband UV light on
Mhm.
either tissue cultures or hairless animals. And it's like, yes,
Nocturnal animals, in
nocturnal
fact.
animals at that, right? So it's like, yes, of course, that those animals aren't going to be well equipped to handle appropriate UVB, or not even appropriate, inappropriate UVB
Mhm.
exposure in a broadband perspective without creating some form of damage. That's to be expected.
Mhm.
But again, it's like you scroll a little bit further in the article, and then it's hyperlinked, use this antioxidant supplement, hyperlinked, use this sunblock, hyperlink, and you're just like, oh, like a lot of these things you have to ask yourself, is someone trying to sell something? And I'm not saying
Right.
it's bad, because you and I are business people,
Mhm.
right? We stand behind products that we think are very high quality,
Right.
and we want to make sure that we get the word out with that. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with it.
Right. We
But
do. I mean, we disclose it. That's called the FTC has guidelines in place. Like I'm using this guy on my belly right now, the little bond charge panel that they are sponsoring our show, and we have disclosed that. You have to disclose that it's a sponsor, that you're being paid to talk about it. You and I are both the same that we're not going to talk about anything that we're not personally using. And if we do talk about it, we will disclose that it's an affiliate link, and the money that you spend, we will get a portion of that to help support the podcast, right?
100%, yeah.
That's that is how it works. Like, and that is social media, that's Instagram. That's what people are doing when they are talking about a product. They are supposed to disclose that there's a sponsorship there, that it's an affiliate link. You have to disclose it on your website. You have to disclose it under YouTube videos. You have to, or you're breaking the law.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's a lot of people breaking the law. Like, that's kind of, not to like interrupt your whole sun thing, but like when I was all upset over the weekend from all these stupid comments, one of them was a guy that kept on tagging this popular doctor who is like, I'm going to talk about how all of these nutritionists are spreading misinformation. And this particular doctor was recently busted by the FTC for taking large amounts of money from the sugar industry,
Large amounts of
like millions of dollars, to talk about how there's no danger in artificial sweeteners to human health, and people should be eating processed foods, and there's no danger to that. This doctor that this person was tagging under my reel about protein, for heaven's sake, I don't understand why it made so many people mad anyway. But like, I'm like, if you're going to tag somebody, at least tag somebody who's not being paid off by the friggin' food industry, for heaven's sake. But the average person doesn't know that. Like, why are you following these people? And there's a list. If you Google it, there's a list of like 10 of these popular influencers who have a combined total of like 6 million followers, right? And they were all given money from these companies to talk about how, oh, there's no danger in aspartame. There's no danger in processed foods. These are totally fine. All foods are fine. There's no dangerous food. All these nutrition people are just spreading dangerous misinformation and they're fear mongering. And I'm like, oh, yeah, your pockets are being lined to talk about this. So, and people don't know because you're breaking the law. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard. I mean, that's a perfect example also though, of like the lens of nature, right?
right.
Or this one particular article that I'm talking about with sunlight, it says any tan, no matter how light, this is a direct quote from the, people know who this is. Every tan, no matter how light, is a sign that your skin has been hurt and is struggling to protect itself. It's
no,
like,
idiot, it's called melanin, and it's good for
melanin,
you.
and melanin's able to actually generate its own molecular hydrogen to calm inflammation in the first place.
As a selective antioxidant.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, but it's just extreme statements like that. I'm like, that makes no sense. People didn't I'm in Michigan right now. People in Michigan had to hunt and gather. They did not live in a cave when the brightest amounts of sunlight were there. They didn't live in a cave all day, and they definitely didn't hunt at night. Those wolverines are vicious.
Right.
So you know, I mean, like like things like
but
that.
Then
like,
you get the argument when you start with that of like, oh, well, they all died when they were like 30. But then I'm like,
yeah, from bleeding out and infectious disease and things like that. That hygiene really helped for, you know.
There's so many of those things, like the menopause argument right now about HRT and menopause, which I'm not again, like if people want to do HRT, like, and they have optimized everything else and it helps them, I don't want to take away anybody's HRT or say don't do it, whatever. But like, this is an argument that keeps coming up is that, women died before they hit menopause. I'm like, wait, what? They're like, only in the last, like, 100 years or so are women living to actually get to menopause. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, there's been no indigenous elders from.
Wait, what? Like, wait, stop.
Again, ask yourself, does this make sense through the lens of nature? It actually doesn't. They're trying to claim it's nature, but it doesn't. Same thing with artificial sweeteners. Does consuming diet soda every day make sense through the lens of nature? It doesn't. It doesn't. And so like, just if you have some like really, if you just have that, if you literally use that as your foundational question to start approaching these things, then you start to, it's for me, it's such a good barometer to narrow things in, because then you can avoid again, you get this, and I'm not saying because you're doing this, but like you see this all the time when people make maybe a bolder statement. Social media loves it, right? And so you're going to find people making bold statements because social media is going to share the heck out of that, because they're going to get people who want to support it and want to fight it, support it and fight it. And it's like I said, it's going to keep that addictive loop going on. Someone's going to stay on their phone longer. And so you're going to be bombarded with these bold statements. I'm going to tell you, bold statements like that, where it's all or nothing, almost never exist in nature. There's unique variations in so many capacities based on one's Fitzpatrick skin type, based on one's geographical location, based on one's mitochondrial haplotype. There's so many variations that we could look at, or variables that we could look at when it comes here. So anytime I'm presented with a all or nothing, black or white statement, for me, that's another red flag to be like, there's no shades of gray in here. Like,
Right. Like that's and I think most reasonable people who are probably listening to this are of that nature of like, let's take this apart a little bit. Let's analyze this a little bit. And let's actually does this actually make sense? I feel like those are the people that you attract to your work and people that listen to the show is like, okay, I don't necessarily need someone to spoon feed me. I can decipher this. And if you're not there yet, then I hope that you can use the information that we provide on the podcast to get there and start to trust yourself and your own intuition a bit more. Because I think that's another big issue is that people have been taught that they should not trust their gut feelings and their intuition.
Oh
And
yeah.
we've just largely
Oh yeah.
disconnected from that entirely. Like that has been severed. And that's part of the goal, I think, of the social media and the media period. And like the divisiveness and like we tell you what to do. We give you a protocol, we give you a meal plan and you follow it and then
Yeah.
you get to have the results. No,
I
no.
know. I know.
People, you have the answers inside, like, but you have disconnected yourself from the availability of that information through constantly ruining your dopamine and looking outside of yourself for every little answer to everything, you know? I mean,
Totally.
it's
I think this pendulum has swung because if you actually look at some interesting historical information, I'm talking, thousands and thousands of years ago, people were so much more right brained and intuitive to
yes.
the extent that, it was not an uncommon thing to be like, well, I'm going to communicate with my ancestors, right? There's a lot of indigenous cultures that knew how to go to various magnetic cross points that were called song lines and things like that to have conversations and just or to connect with higher spiritual energies and powers, whatever you want to call it, right? Let's not get into semantics here. Because that was the thing, because that was just innately in them. They knew how to use that right brain intuitive side. However, I do believe that the pendulum has swung, and understandably so. We're way more left brain, analytical, logical, and that may have gotten us to build societies as they are today.
Mhm.
Not necessarily saying these societies are ideal for human experience, but that's where we're at now with technology and science and medicine, and right, we're very left brain, and so
Mhm.
now we've just been conditioned that we have to think with things of science, right?
Yep.
Science is king
I
here.
need a peer reviewed study to tell me that I should eat tomatoes. Like,
Right, right, exactly,
do
exactly.
like, do you though? Like,
And,
is
and
there tomato growing outside your door? Eat it. Like, enjoy it.
one of my and what's one of my favorite things to hear, and I've heard this in my community, is people, because my question typically back to people when they are asking me, well, should I? And I would be like, well, does that resonate with you?
Right.
What do you feel? And
Right.
like as you start to give people permission to listen to that little voice or that feeling, whatever it might be, they start to become more confident with it to the
Mhm.
extent that they begin to realize, like, wow, I actually know what my body is asking for, or what was going to be helpful for my family or my
Mhm.
kids or in this particular situation. Like they start to trust that antenna that's been
Mhm.
there all along, but it's been dampened because we're in such a left brain society these days.
Mhm.
And people, I think, realize that because that's when they start to explore things like spirituality more, or meditation, or I mean, there's a means to it,
Mhm.
to kind of develop listening to that inner voice. But part of it is just giving yourself permission to realize that this is a thing. And
Yep.
when you do that, you're no longer dependent on an expert telling you what to do.
Right.
When you're no longer dependent even on me or you, right? You're not dependent on us. Well, sure, you might want to listen to the podcast or be in our communities just to kind of hear the information and how we
Mhm.
share and we chat and those
Mhm.
sorts of things. But at the same time, you deeply know what resonates most with you. And then you can take care of your own body. You can take care of your family. It's a beautiful thing to see happening when people
Mhm.
used to outsource, like we all did. We used to all outsource our health to doctors, our nutrition, our diets to nutritionists,
Mhm.
our fitness to
Mhm.
personal trainers. And not that those people aren't, not that there's not some great people, great doctors, nutritionists, and
Mhm.
personal trainers on the planet, but to outsource everything disconnects us
Not
so
meant to
deeply.
be that way.
Exactly, exactly.
And I think it's making people sicker. And I think people like one comment that I see a lot on social media is, oh, it's just oh, it's too confusing. Like there's just too many things. I just can't deal with this. Like the kind of victim person who's like, oh, a new set of information I can't handle anymore. And I'm like, okay, like disconnect from your phone, disconnect from the emotionality of like whatever has triggered you in this particular post. And just again, does this make sense in nature? Does it apply to me? Like, how does this work? And I think people are just getting so confused about information. Like, I'll mention him because, like, I don't think I've mentioned him before, but Dr. Saladino, he is always on the beach surfing. He's in Costa Rica, 12-hour day, 12-hour night. Like, he's in a place where he's very quantum aligned in that way. And he's eating fruit and honey. And he's also very like ripped, metabolically healthy. So what gets me is people who are like 300 pounds and like living in freaking like Oregon. And they're like, oh, I'm doing the Paul Saladino diet. I'm like, why though? Like, it doesn't make any sense to you. You're living in the Pacific Northwest and you're like not metabolically healthy. Like, why can't people? I don't know. It's just so hard for people to understand context as it comes to information, where it's coming from, how it actually applies to them. That was a whole lot of ranting.
Well,
So,
no, but that's true. But it's perfect because again, this circadian and quantum lens has given me another way to view things, right? Is
mhm,
it's like
mhm.
that works for that person in that
And
location.
that's such, yeah. He's in Costa Rica.
Similarly,
You're in the Pacific Northwest. You're getting like,
right. Or there, indigenous cultures in northern Canada, right, who had maybe a couple of berries that were harvested, right, but like really lived mostly on fish and animals, right, the vast majority of the year.
mhm,
And I mean, and so it's like, and occasionally you'll find fish with roe in them and things like that. So it's like you just have to ask yourself, okay, people can live healthfully
mhm.
no matter where they are on the planet. But just because someone is doing something, eating a certain way in the tropics doesn't mean it's going to apply to you. So that's where you have to ask yourself about location. No diet has ever taken into account location. It's
Mm-mm,
only
mm-mm.
you got to be ketogenic, you got to be carnivore, you got to be vegan, you got to. And no one ever takes into consideration the fact that our seasonal variations matter
Mm,
tremendously when it comes to things like my blood sugar regulation, when it comes to things like my hormones and hormone
yeah.
balancing, my sleep, my
Mhm.
time for repair versus time for more activity. I
Right.
mean, all of that
Yeah, in the
shifts and changes
summer, like,
seasonally.
we have so much more light available. Like, I eat more probably, in the summer than I do in the winter time because there's less light available. I'm not as active in the winter as I am in the summer. Like, my microbiome is different in the summer than
Totally.
it is in the winter. My thyroid, my hormone, like, nobody understands like these things shift. And when sunlight hits your skin, we have these receptors in the mitochondria, like on cytochrome 1. We also, that has UV receptors. That's where carbohydrates enter the chain. We also have red and near infrared light that helps to increase glucose tolerance. So the same meal that you eat outside, grounded under the sun, versus eating in front of a television screen at 8 o'clock at night, your body's going to treat it completely differently.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
nuance that gets lost on people. You can't eat all your meals in front of a damn TV at 8 o'clock at night and expect your body to know what to do with that and for you to get good reparative restorative sleep. Have the same meal at 3 p.m. outside on your back lawn,
Right.
even if you don't change what you're eating. Like, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, even if you are not eating like the most perfect meal, if you switch it to a different time of day and eat it outside, your body's going to have a better response to it than it would eating at 8 o'clock at night in front of the TV when it's dark outside. Like, it's just, yes, it is that simple. So, Carrie, what is the biggest thing you would say with people and red light therapy panels that doesn't get talked about a lot?
So many people talk about how inconvenient it is to kind of set them up. And sometimes they just want to put them directly on their body, and you really can't because of the non native EMFs.
Yeah, exactly. That is why we are both so excited that we have these little battery operated bond charge panels. You can put them right here on your skin, and you're not going to be getting all that non native EMF. You can set it up for your kids, put it right next to them, and you don't have to set them up in front of a big panel and make them sit 6 to 12 inches away, right?
Yeah. So, like when my kids have stomach aches or things, that is my go to. I pull out that panel, I lift up the shirt, I just set it on them, and they could still be reading, coloring, doing what they're doing while at the same time getting the red light therapy, like you said, in a very kid friendly way.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of parents just even put them up on the ear when they have ear infections, earaches. It is just so, I mean, I'm just doing it here on my ear right now. It feels so good. So
Mhm.
these are absolutely fantastic. You can use the code Quantum Pod, all one word. There'll be a link down in the show notes to save on yours. And these are from Bond Charge. So if you are someone who just wants the convenience of a red light therapy panel, doesn't want to worry about non-native EMF, you can just put it right on your skin and get skin healing benefits as well as infrared that can penetrate through and actually provide some mitochondrial support as well. These are absolutely fantastic. So check the link out down in the show notes and use the code Quantum Pod to save on yours.
It is that simple. So like the whole thing, and I hope this doesn't come across as like bashing people for not
No,
knowing this, because we were those
no.
people, right?
Right. That's the
We
I'm just so excited about it because I'm
I
like, oh, you
know.
guys should know about this. Like,
Like
this
this
is
is a
so
new
cool.
lens.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a new lens through
Yeah.
which you can start to like funnel, like filter your information that's coming in. And it's always like, oh, that it's always has to do with like the circadian and the nature. It's like,
Mhm,
okay, I want you to
mhm.
start asking, yes, this person says we need to do ketosis 24/7. And but where are they living? What's their situation? Spoiler alert,
If
I don't
you
think you have to do ketosis
No,
24/7.
no. And if you have 100 pounds to lose versus 20
Five.
pounds to
The
lose.
same, those final 5 or 10 pounds or whatever it is, right? Yeah.
You have 100 pounds to lose, you can be in ketosis any time of the year. You don't have to worry about refeeds and you don't have to work. You are fine. If you have only 20 pounds to lose, then I'm going to be a little bit more cautious with you of even putting you in ketosis to begin with. That's not going to be my starting place, especially if it's the middle of the summer. I'm just going to have you get rid of the processed foods, the grains, all the, all that stuff that could be inflammatory. And you're probably going to, take the weight off without going all the way keto, unless you've got some sort of an inflammatory condition where I might say, oh, keto would be helpful for this condition that you have. Like it's all so it's not a sexy answer, but the answer is always it depends. Like, is keto a good diet for me? It depends, like
Is
what
carnivore a good diet to me? For me, I just recommended it for someone who has what I suspect is ulcerative colitis,
right.
right? I mean, like whose gut gets insanely inflamed with grains and produce and so it's like there it's all uniquely situational. So
Right.
again, it goes back to like what resonates with you, and listen, trust that little voice. I highly encourage people, and this is going to sound like ridiculous advice if someone's already an experienced meditator, but if you're new, literally sit quietly with your eyes closed and
Hmm.
do nothing.
Hmm.
Do nothing and just sit there. And yes, thoughts might come in, but they can come and go, or
Yeah.
focus on your breath a little bit. But like the more you give yourself your brain that open space away from continuous input, information,
Information.
the
Hmm.
more answers from maybe your guardian angel or God or your higher powers, yet again, semantics are not something I'm interested in arguing, can come in and start to
Hmm.
give you a help and assistance. It's there.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah, I mean,
there.
that's why I have designated times where I don't know where my phone is, and God help my family if they need to get a hold of me, but like I have to keep it away from me because it is a temptation to look
Totally.
and see who commented or like messaged or whatever. Like, so I have to just physically remove it from the
Yep.
equation. And my most favorite time of day is in the morning and then before bed, because those are the times that I have no phone around me, and I'll take breaks during the day with the same. But in the morning, especially, I'm out on my little back patio. I hear the birds, the sun's coming up. I'm drinking my water and just really like tuning into nature and what's going on in my environment rather than emails and what am I going to post today and what does this person have to say about me and who's talking crap about me now? Like, I just can't, like, it has to be separated off to be in the moment. And I think that's the hard thing about society these days is that we are set up to be chained to a phone or a computer.
All day.
And with that, there's these apps that are designed to, we talked about this in another episode, pull us in and keep us there through
Yeah.
polarizing information. And so it does take some self-control and some discipline to just like have times where your phone is gone, like from from your periphery. Like you just can't have it, you know?
Well, and not even a book. Like, I mean, honestly, it's like we need time away from any of that.
Everything. Just
Everything.
yeah, everything. Yeah. My
It's
kids are still sleeping in the morning usually. So it's just like, oh, I need that time to start my day. And then I choose like how is my energy today? How am I going to show up? What is my intention today? You know,
sure.
rather than just having everything come at me and like, oh
Yeah.
wow, okay, crap, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's absolutely information overload these days. And so a trend that I do see is people information jump, right? The
Mhm.
information,
Oh my God.
it's like
Well,
shop
they
for
do it
more
to us.
information.
They do it from my group to your group to Sarah's group to back to
Right.
my group
And
again.
And
I'm
I
like,
don't think it's with ill intention. I think it's people
"No."
just looking for answers. But
Yeah,
at the same time, you can't just get information without application.
right.
You have to be, in order to know how something is impacting your body, you have to be as consistent as you can be in
Mhm,
applying it, right? For a
mhm,
certain amount of time, let's
mhm.
say 2 months, 3 months, right? Just observe.
I like at
Uh,
least 90 days.
I love at least 90 days.
Yeah,
Exactly.
give it a
Exactly.
shot.
Give it a shot. And so that it's like, we want instant gratification
Mhm,
and big shifts right away, and it's like I encourage people to just stick with one thing, even if it's just, and this is I think how you and I came upon this stuff as well. I literally layered it on little by little by little,
mhm,
so I was able to
mhm,
be like, oh, I actually crave a walk during UVA rise. Oh,
mhm,
the
mhm,
lights at night are viscerally offensive to me,
mhm.
right?
Good.
Oh
Right.
gosh, going out and standing barefoot at sunrise when I was on like this busy street, my gym was on this busy street, and being that weirdo across the street from the methadone clinic, like, like, I mean, it was one of those situations
Yeah.
where, but I knew my body, I was starting to apply these things,
Mhm.
but I gave my body enough time to like be
Right.
like, oh wait, this is making a difference. And while I
Mhm,
did notice a change within 3 days, it still was applying it and observing, applying and observing
mhm,
it. And, and so I highly encourage people to take kind of like that slow is more, that 2%, I call it the 2% shifts, and just
mhm.
observe it for a little while. Almost more so than let me throw everything at it all at once. And okay, I did it for 2 weeks and it doesn't work. It's like,
Right.
that for me, that's a nervous system stressor. Just think,
It
just
is.
think about
That's the
that.
thing is like you have to give it time, you know? And yeah, I didn't have ideal conditions when I started doing sunrise. I live in the middle of a city and like trees everywhere. I had to go in my front yard and people are out walking their dogs and I was out there barefoot in my front yard eating my breakfast on the ground. People are like, "What the hell is she doing?" You know, but it felt so good and my body was like, "Oh wow, this is what I'm supposed to be doing." And so I continued it and now I have a new place to enjoy my sunrise and I love it. Every house I own from now on will be facing east in the backyard.
Except when there's block parties happening at your neighbor's
Oh
house.
Lord, don't get me started on that. That's a whole other mess. It's not a block party. It is something
It's a
else.
city-wide party, and
Okay.
Sarah Pugh invited herself.
She did. Homeboy got taken to jail earlier this week. So that's a whole other this is
Oh,
an off-camera conversation. Yeah, that's a whole other drama. We'll have to
yeah, that's
talk
a whole
about
other
that on like
drama.
the uncut episode. Um
Quantum conversations uncut.
yeah, I got a whole
Yeah.
I just wonder how these situations now that I understand how energy works, I really do wonder sometimes. I'm like, how did this happen? Like what am I trying to work through?
You have some interesting stories.
I'm working through some interesting things right
You're
now.
like,
I don't know how this came about, but
you're like,
okay, we're gonna
man,
just
let's revisit karma. Like, what's going on, right? Like, what's going on
I
here?
wish Dolores Canna was still around because I would definitely be scheduling a point with her to figure out like what are we trying to do in this one? Because
Yeah.
like it's some interesting stuff going on. It's never boring, that's for sure. No, I have this great dream home I move into, and then the neighbor from hell builds the freaking mansion from hell, and now he's like, yeah, throwing all these parties and has a pool that lights up all night, goes from purple to green to blue, the red, like, oh my lord. Yeah. Um,
Well, you're still maintaining your circadian rhythm in
my
spite of that
circadian
environmental insult, right there.
yes.
Okay,
So
and so
back to topic.
entirely different topic altogether.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to topic in terms of like sorting out information, right? The lens of nature. Where if who's giving the information? Where are they giving it from? The
Mhm.
other thing I like to always say, and again, I say this with utmost respect, is do they have kids or don't they have kids? Or I mean, and
Yes.
that's not to be offensive, but like I can't do a 4-hour morning routine. It just
No.
it just doesn't work
No,
for
you have
me.
3 kids. Like, I don't think some people, like, understand the level of insanity. Sarah got a taste of it staying here with my kids.
I'm certain, yeah.
Like, when the children are abound, like, you don't do
Mom,
things.
mom, mom,
You
mom.
don't do things. Yeah, I mean, James is 21 months and is, "Mommy."
Is he still doing
Like,
bye, bye?
"Bye." Throwing everything you own in the toilet, like, the trash to tell it bye and close it up, bye. There's certain amount of things like you view the world differently and you don't have time to do these extensive routines and spend all this money on stuff. It's like, no, like
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that. And like that, they're
Well,
entitled to put their stuff
yeah, I
out
mean,
there. Like,
it's their
cool.
experience. I love that
Right.
they're having that experience and they've got these hours to dedicate to their morning routine. That's beautiful. But I also don't want people hearing that routine who don't have that
Right.
availability and feeling like I'm
Oh,
screwed.
I'm
Well,
messing
I
up.
can never, I can never manifest my dreams, or I can never meditate, or I can never, it's like,
Right.
literally my meditations are 3 minutes sometimes
Yeah.
because I just
Yeah.
need space to myself, a
Yeah.
moment, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
want to put that out there, that again, there's just a
Yeah.
couple of questions you got to ask yourself. And how are you interacting with this information?
Mhm.
And what pressure are you putting on yourself to be perfect
Right.
based on what this person is saying versus how are you applying the information and seeing how it feels for you?
Right.
Um, put that
Right.
resonant, you have that antenna, turn that antenna on, it'll tell you. You'll
Yeah.
learn a lot from it. So
It will.
really interestingly, I'm still probably gonna do a post about this. But as I was kind of looking through this one particular article, I came across another article on sunlight. And
Mm.
okay, here we go. Skin pigmentation. The article is called, this is a published article, right? This
Mm.
isn't an influencer article, it's a published article. And it's called Skin Pigmentation and its Control from Ultraviolet Radiation to Stem Cells. So it gives a lot of interesting information. And it
Mm.
also literally it delineates how ultraviolet radiation onto the skin, right, stimulates POMC to create melanin, right, through
Mhm.
alpha MSH,
Yep.
and beta. And it actually also says, oh, by the way, it looks like also for some reason when ultraviolet radiation strikes the skin, POMC also makes beta endorphin. And so
Mm.
we know this, right? Beta endorphin,
Mhm.
it's a feel good brain chemical. It's a feel good
Mhm.
brain
Mhm.
chemical.
Yeah.
The conclusion of this article was sunlight addiction is mediated by tanning addiction is mediated by a bona fide neuroendocrine pathway, and numerous studies have illustrated that it meets the DSM-4 addiction criteria. Thus,
Shut
tanning
up.
addiction should be viewed as a psychiatric disorder.
Shut up.
And I
So
know
now
that,
because you can show that sunlight makes you feel good and feel less pain, it's an addiction that they should DSM it.
and I
Okay.
know they're talking about the lens of tanning beds. I am certain with
I
this,
get
but at the
it.
same
I get
time,
it.
why would that pathway even be built in? So they go on to be like, the article goes on to say something, I'll just kind of paraphrase, something along the lines of, one wonders whether at some point sun-seeking behavior conferred some sort of survival advantage or health benefits. And I'm like, ding, ding, ding. It still does that, right? That
Right.
sun-seeking behavior, we still need that. So it's like, again, lens of nature. Why
Right.
would we have this pathway built into us
Right.
if it wasn't going to provide some form of a benefit for
Right.
us?
And the funny story about kind of goes with that. When I was going through pregnancy with James, I had to make a lot of compromises with my husband because it's a marriage and there's two people and it's his baby too. Because I would have liked to just go in the woods and have the baby without anyone there. But I chose a practice that had midwives and OBs there. And so the midwives would be like, and then the OBs would be like, no, like it was just this thing. I'm like, this is a really
Yeah.
weird dynamic here. But one of the OBs, she was doing my exam, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're so tan. What have you been doing?" I'm like, laying in the sun. And she's like, "Oh, reminds me when I used to work in Africa, and people, instead of taking pain medication, they would just lay out in the sun on rocks." And I was like,
Analgesic effect, opioids. It makes
yeah.
opioids.
And
I
she's
know.
like, that people actually used to just do that instead of taking pain medications. Craziest thing in the world. I'm like, but is it though? Instead of taking a like a,
Morphine or
an
endogenous opioids.
make this make sense. Okay. I'm just going to enjoy my big old tan belly and go on with my day,
And
but
feel great about myself for the rest of the
good
day.
about it. Not even.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's just, I don't
It's
know.
an
The
observation of
observation.
how people, most people are just like, they just take people's word for it. They just do. And my husband this morning was like, "Do you think if we hadn't had the experience with our daughter, with everything happening with her and us kind of being like woken up
Yeah.
abruptly, would we be this way that we are now?" And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know, because that experience just kind of shook me to my core. And a lot of people didn't really come to my side until 2020. Um, but since like 2008, I've been looking at the world like, y'all are crazy. Like, how are y'all actually believing this?" Like, what? And then everyone else in 2020 was like, wait a minute, that's all a charade. We could go on because there's more, but like, I could be here talking about this all day. But like,
Yeah,
when
I
it
know.
comes to your information about nutrition and health, I think that the gist of this episode is, look at the source that they are citing. If there is a product, make sure that they disclose, that there is a promotion, they're being paid for it. It's somewhere on their website, like, yeah. Carrie and I both turn down people every day.
Mhm.
Someone is offering to pay me a bunch of money to come on my
All
podcast
the
and promote a
time.
supplement. And I'm like, no, because
Yeah.
I don't care how much money that is. It's going to confuse people that listen to my podcast, because I've talked about not using stuff like
Yeah. I don't think people realize that the money that people are willing to throw out there
so
if you are,
much money on supplements. It's wild.
you do X number of stories and then all of a sudden here's your payout. It's,
Right.
or wear this clothing brand. I mean, I get clothing, like,
And
I'm like,
for me, for clothing brands,
I
I'm like,
know. Can you imagine me taking a selfie? And like, how unnatural it'd be me taking a selfie in a mirror with me and this, like, look at my clothing. Like, it's just not me. Like, I mean, I would laugh. I would just
and
die
I'm
laughing.
not throwing shade on anybody who, because I do on my
No.
podcast, like, there are sponsored, but it is specifically that's a sponsored, like, that you can tell it's an ad. Okay.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can just, oh, Sarah's helping to pay, because my the production costs for these podcasts, the time that we take out to do it, like, it does take time and it does
It
take money to
money.
produce these episodes and keep them consistently coming. So that is how people pay their bills. But if they're
Mhm.
not disclosing that, then that's actually against the law. Like, there's a law, there's
Yeah.
laws in place. So I'm not dogging on anybody who wants to support their channel, wants to have that revenue stream.
Or wear cute clothes and get paid. I don't care.
Uh, I'm
That's
waiting
just
for
not
some
me.
brands to reach out for me that I wear all the time. Hello, call me.
Packed.
Exactly.
Packed.
Yeah,
Packed.
yeah. It's okay. We're waiting for the call. So we're not saying like, never, no, bad. Those people are all shills. Like, I'm just saying, when someone is saying something, just consider why, how, and is there money involved? Like, just be skeptical about things and check sources. Check. They're going to give you a study to back up what they're saying. Look at the study.
You have to these days look at the study.
Who was it done on? What is the time? And
Well, you also have to look at, one of the best ways to kind of know is that particular study, or some of the, if it's a review article, I mean, you have to look at funding, right? You have
oh,
to look
that
at
too,
where these
because they have
researchers,
to disclose any
conflicts of interest
conflicts
and
of
funding.
interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always have to disclose conflicts of interest.
You
So
know,
if the study was done on men over 60 who are obese, why would it apply to a 45-year-old woman? Like, no, really not.
right. And if it's yeah, I mean, you'll find studies that are really, I mean, the funding, the industry that has the funding is the pharmaceutical industry
Mhm,
and big
mhm,
food and those. I mean, so
mhm.
you will find a lot of those fundings. I'm not saying every
Soda
research article is going to be
industry.
biased, but
Yeah,
you have to be aware that is a thing that we
yep,
have to look at when we're reading articles is bias when it comes to being funded and wanting to get the results that your funders are looking for when it comes to your research.
yeah, exactly. So just, you know, and don't forget your own intuition, your own gut feeling
Intuition.
with things as well. Like don't let yourself get so bombarded with information that you can't go within and really just have a feeling about like this. That's how it was with me in quantum biology and circadian biology. It was
Same.
an immediate fire inside of me that was like lit up and was like, this is where we go. This is what we do.
Totally.
This is the path here.
Yeah.
And
And another one for me that was when I started to learn about inflammatory food ingredients, right? Like, the
mhm,
processed food ingredients, I learned about glyphosate, it's
glyphosate,
like, oh,
deuterium.
that makes sense,
Yeah,
right? Of course, that makes sense to
yeah,
me why
yeah.
spraying our food full of chemicals can have detrimental effects. And then I started to dive into the pathways and what's happening with the gut microbiome
Mhm,
and the
mhm,
connective tissue and so many other aspects being impacted by mitochondria. I mean, so
mhm.
little things like that. When the resonance antenna goes off one way or the other of like, oh yeah, that actually is something that I really strongly want to dive into and kind of learn more about versus
Yeah,
that doesn't really hold weight.
yep, exactly. Yeah. So I hope this was
Yeah.
helpful and little rant about my neighbor in there. We'll see if
Are we going to edit that out? Sorry, neighbor.
I don't know. No, care. He's not
Doubtful
on
that this
he's
individual
not
is
on the good
listening to this
list.
podcast.
No one in my neighborhood knows I even do this, so
I
it's fine.
know.
All
I only have one
right.
neighbor who does now, and I think actually I think we're cool. I think we're
I try
cool.
to like not let people know what I do. I don't like I just want to be
Listen, it's a conversation
incognito.
killer. Okay.
Yeah, I don't
So
want to talk about it if you know.
my this just before we end my my college, my undergrad made you write what's called a senior individualized product, and it
Mm,
was called your SIP, right? And your SIP was all any seniors would ever talk about, and like the other professors there and people who knew that this was a thing, everyone would be like, well, what's your SIP, what's your SIP, what's your SIP? And it would be like this big conversation about what people are researching. And yes, I went to a nerd college, so it was a big conversation about what people are researching and things like that. And my SIP was on bacterial interactions in the vaginal
oh
ecosystem,
yeah.
right? With an emphasis on the bacterial vaginosis. And as soon as I would tell people my title, it would be like,
They're like,
okay, next to what? Like,
great.
and so I'm having like this this relapse back into like sometimes when I start to talk about quantum biology with people, it's like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah. I
and
just
like it's like the biggest. Either people are really interested, or it's the biggest conversation killer on the planet.
my favorite phrase that I have borrowed from another fellowship I'm in is attraction, not promotion. And that
Yeah,
is like how I do it for real. Like
totally.
if you come to me and you want to talk about this stuff, cool. But I do not in my daily personal life where I live and my real life, I don't
Yes,
talk
girl.
about any of this stuff. I just live it, I just live it. And if
Exactly.
people have a question and they want to know what I'm doing, then I'll talk about it. But like, I don't go to family reunions or PTA meetings and be like, I want to talk about the benefits of sunlight today.
I know, I
I,
know, I know. And same thing, like this one, this lovely community member who showed me this article from this doctor about sunlight, basically anti-sunlight article.
mm,
Someone else commented below and was like, you should have this doctor on your podcast, your and Sarah's podcast, and educate him. And it's like,
we're not
nope,
here to do that. Like,
nope.
that's not my job to educate people that don't want to be educated. I will
Or
educate.
if he wants to, if he comes across this type of information at some point and he's curious
Right.
and wants to know more and seeks it out,
Right.
fine. I'd
I'll talk
love to have a
about it.
conversation. I would
I'm not there
love
to
to.
debate anybody though. That's what was
No.
so funny with this Instagram reel of mine that got a million views is people wanted to debate me. And I'm like, I'm not debating what I put up here. Like, if you don't like it, that's fine. I don't really, doesn't change how I feel and what I'm going to recommend to people. I'm not debating it. And they're like, you need to debate. I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh, I need to watch this Instagram reel. I must have
it's
missed
so
it.
dumb. You're going to watch it and be like, but why? It's not even that interesting. It's stupid, but it's got 1 million views and it won't stop. And I can't stop getting
Make
notifications.
it stop. Make it stop.
I have visible abs and I don't follow your advice. I'm like, well, the reel was actually meant for women and I'm happy for you. So have a good day. I have this like urge to make a parody page one day. Just like, I don't want to have my face. It's like a name, like a no one knows it's me posting like screenshots of comments, DMs.
It's called therapy. That would be therapy, is what that would be.
Therapeutic for me, but people would just really be like, "Wait, what? This is this is like a comment you got? This is a message you got? Like what?"
People really do this stuff. Yeah,
people really say this.
My rude awakening was when someone commented on my feet one back in the day. I was like,
"Oh, I had a guy his his Instagram handle was foot SLV, and
don't.
He was like liking like all of my posts. So like my notification was like foot SLV, liked your post, like your story, like your post, like your story, like your post. It was like my whole notification. I was like, block.
Like, oh boy. Yeah.
Help.
So yeah, anyways.
I think we both need to go sit barefoot in the grass for a minute after this episode.
I know. I do. I feel a little just brain dead right now.
So if you are listening and you feel the same way,
still listening to this
invitation to turn it off and go outside, drink some mineral water.
All good. Yeah. I mean, I do ultimately think though we need to say something like this because there is, how do you sort through all the information? And, the lens of nature, your own resonance antenna, just those two things alone can go a long way to pointing you in the direction of what's going to work best for you.
Right. Exactly. So stop like looking for the next guru because they're always going to disappoint you. That could be a whole other episode of like people, this guru thing going on. They're human beings. They're always going to disappoint you. And you're always going to find a point with which you disagree with them on and if you don't, then that's a problem. Like you got to question, like, I disagree with at least one thing that Carrie teaches. I can't think of it right now, but like we have points where we disagree.
Yeah, we disagree on collagen a little bit. We disagree on some deuterium things. Right. Yeah, totally.
Right. Yeah.
Totally. And that's okay.
Yeah,
right?
It doesn't mean that we're like going to cancel the podcast and not be friends anymore. It's just like, oh, she views that a little differently than I do. And I'm open, like it's, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And that's okay. That's totally okay.
Exactly.
Still be my friend, Sarah.
Exactly. Because of collagen and deuterium of all things.
Oh no, God forbid.
Maybe we'll talk about that next time. So.
Oh yeah, that would be an interesting one. Okay. Just kind of get our different takes on it.
Yeah. All right. Well, stay tuned, subscribe, like, share, all the things. And we'll see you next week.